Welcome everyone, welcome to Silent Stacks. Here we focus on silently stacking the bag while navigating uncertainty in real time. Welcome to my channel. I post 3 videos per month, one on the 8th, one on the 17th, and one on the 26th of each month. If you find value in my work, feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let's dive right in. Alright, so here we have the Bitcoin chart. We did have a nice pump after retest. This is the pattern that I drew in last video that I made on March 26th. You could go ahead and check that video out. I drew this pattern out and so far it looks like it's playing out. I explained why I drew this and here we are about a week later and it looks like it's playing out. So to recap, this is the indicator that I created here. And I was short-term bullish because of this green dot, and this green dot, I suspected that it was going to be a magnet. If you want me to talk more about this strategy, feel free to comment below and I'll go ahead and do that. But because of these green dot and some other factors, zooming out, I was targeting a higher price in the short term. And over here, we did have another green dot. So it is somewhat showing strength in the short term, but we are already starting to get divergence in the short term as well, because we had a green dot here and then we went higher and then we printed no green dots. So in the short term, in this pattern, we are getting some divergence. But when you look at this green dot, we still didn't test this. So I'm still anticipating a possibility of it closing above 75K because of this green dot. And then you can check out my other video, my previous video, and I go over it more. So if you look at this red dot, there's a chance of it going lower, and it went lower here and printed more red dots, and has a chance of going lower and it went lower here, printing more red dots, and so on. And then we bottomed over here, printed a green dot. This green dot is a prepare to buy, and then we got the entries over here. So this is the indicator that I developed. If you have more questions on that, feel free to comment below. But there is about 2 different strategies within this one. So we have the E as one of the bigger strategies. And then we have the dots that could determine trends and momentum. So I am anticipating a higher close of 75K. So we'll see how that plays out in the short term. Now let's zoom out here. We did have a D mark on March 2, the beginning of March. And ever since then, we've been holding a nice flat, which is I like to see. Can we still go lower from here? Of course we could. You know, a lot of people has been eyeing the 60K zone. So if we decide to capitulate further, then I am anticipating a sub 62 to grab this liquidity, to even sub 60 to grab that liquidity. But right now in the short term, I am just focusing on the 75K zone. That one makes more sense with this structure, and we'll see how that plays out. All right, so that said, let's zoom out all the way, and I do have some other information to share. If you've been a follower of this channel, you know that I use the eclipses to time the market. I made several videos on this. You could check out my previous video. I go in details on this and explaining the lunar eclipse cycle that we are about to end. So the last full total lunar eclipse was March 3rd. And usually the last total lunar eclipse marks the bottom for Bitcoin. So I did theorize that March 3rd could be the bottom, which a lot of people are not anticipating. And it will throw a lot of people off. So that's my main idea. But that said, I do have to share another idea that I came upon. And this has to do with more mathematics and the timing of the halving. So let's go over that over here. If you look at these blue lines, these are the halvings. And it's a simple concept. You go to the monthly chart and then you measure 30 bars, which is 30 months from the halving. And that's how I got this yellow lines. All right, so 30 months after the halving determines this yellow line. And if you look at the first one, it tended to be a bottom over here. And then we could do the same thing for the halving on July 2016, 30 bars after, or 30 months after, will lead to January 2019. And that's where you get this red line, and it also marked the bottom. We could do the same thing for the halving of May 2020. You do 30 bars or 30 months after, it leads to November 2022. And that's where I got this yellow line, and it also marked the bottom. And then last but not least, where we are now, we could get the halving on April 2024, 30 bars after, leads to October 2026. And this is the reason why a lot of people are calling the bottom October 2026 and not March. So with this idea, I thought it was very interesting because even though my bias is on the Eclipse idea until proven otherwise, this makes mathematical sense as well. So what's going to be interesting about this cycle is that this cycle will break one of the theses, because so far none of them were wrong. Ever since Bitcoin Genesis, both ideas were correct. Ever since the beginning of Bitcoin, both ideas played out to be true. And according to this one, it's starting to misalign. So one of the theses is going to be broken. It's either going to be the halving mathematics depicted by this yellow line for a Bitcoin bottom, or it'll be the eclipse idea. So it's going to be an interesting thing to see how it plays out and which one stands to be true. I did mention also we do have a partial lunar eclipse on August 2026, so it aligns more or less with this yellow line on October 2026. So whichever one plays out, we'll reassess this thesis, because this could still be part of the lunar energy, the lunar bearish energy. And I had this red line drawn out as a potential for a while. And this will align more with the October bottom. So we'll just have to see how it plays out. I am still open to the idea of Bitcoin already bottomed, because not a lot of people are anticipating it. I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions on that, feel free to comment below, and I'd like to hear your thoughts. Do you think Bitcoin bottomed March 2026? Comment below. Or do you think Bitcoin bottoms October 2026? Also comment below. I would love to hear your thoughts on which one you think will occur or makes more sense for you. All right, so recapping, in the short term, I am anticipating trading above 75K. So we'll see how that plays out. And then zooming out, I believe the bottom is either already in, or the local bottom, which occurred on March 3rd, or the bottom will be closer to August and October 2026. Either or, we're pretty close if you think about it. And I still do believe the worst is behind us, even though it doesn't feel good right now with all the propaganda of war, the economy. So there's a lot of fear propaganda, which makes me even a little bit more bullish short term, potentially, at least above the 75K, as I mentioned, heading towards the 80K. So this one will make sense. And then whether we open shorts here or not, we'll just see where we are in a few weeks. All right, because remember, we're still in this range of 60K to 80K, and we've been in this range for a while. We've been in this range for 70 days now. We'll just take it 1 week at a time here, and I'll keep you posted every step of the way. So feel free to subscribe to stay tuned. Now let's look at the XRP chart. The XRP chart is a thesis that I've been observing for a while. It's a simple idea, and it's using the 200 weekly with the 50 weekly. Every time XRP touches the 200 after a pump, it tends to lead to a reaction from the 200 to the 50. So if you look at 2018, after XRP pumped, it finally made its way into the 200, and the first touch of the 200 led to the 50 EMA. And in 2022 as well, after we pumped, we finally made our way to the 200, and the first touch of the 200, we went to the 50. So here we are in 2026. We had a pump, finally made our way to the 200. So I am anticipating a pump to the 50. And right now it's sitting a little bit below $2, about 192 right now. So we are closing below the 200, but we're still hovering in this zone. All right, so for short term, to confirm this pump, XRP will have to close a weekly above about 140. And if we could get a weekly close above 140, then I am anticipating a pump towards the $2 zone. Let's zoom in here. This is the 4-hour strategy. So we did get some green tags over here, some green dots over here and over here. So these are magnets for me. So we do have a potential to push towards the 160 anytime. But in the bigger strategy, we are in the sell sequence, as you can see with this red dot. So right now the signals are not clear. It's leaning towards 50-50 because we do have sell pressure a little bit here. But we also have the magnet of the green dots over here. I'll show you a better example how it worked out on Ethereum. So Ethereum already completed the 3 sequence of the sell entry. So over here, we had a prepare to sell, and then we printed 3 red entries over here, and that's already getting worn out because with this strategy I only print 3. So we have entry over here, you could have shorted this, entry over here, you could have shorted that, entry over here, you could have shorted that. And now we're getting closes above this. So this sell is getting exhausted and the magnet is still towards the green dots. You can say 23.50 more or less. So I'm still anticipating trades above 23.50 to determine the next direction. And right now this seems to be a nice structure to do so. And for ETH, we could either pump all the way towards this zone over here, which aligns with the EMA, which is sitting at anywhere from 2,500 to 2,800. So this would be a good pump if the pump is strong. Or we could capitulate depending on what Bitcoin does. But in the short term, I am anticipating for ETH to start closing above 23.50 for at least a few candles. So we'll see how that plays out. So ETH is looking a little bit more clear than XRP to me. All right, so if you look at XRP, it's still in the sell sequence. But as I mentioned in my previous video, the sell sequence of XRP is not too accurate. It does take time. And XRP is very unpredictable. So it could just pump as well if the market decides to pump, ignoring all the sell signals and creating a structure within this zone. And then with the structure, things will make more sense. If you want more details on that, make sure you check out the video I made on March 26th. I go over that in more details. But the direction will be determined by Bitcoin. And then we could also monitor Bitcoin dominance, which is still in the same zone. No decision has been made in the Bitcoin dominance. So because of that, we'll have to keep watching Bitcoin for the direction. So nothing has changed. We've been in this zone for 200 days, ever since the breakout of the structure. So to me, it makes more sense for Bitcoin dominance to fall, but it has not proved it to be the case yet. So we'll have to wait and see. We are hovering below the EMA over here, which is good, but I will still say this is a 50-50 zone. Okay, we could go up, we could go down from here. No clear direction. And because of that, we'll have to watch Bitcoin for the direction of the alts. If you have any questions on that, feel free to comment below and I can explain that further. So to recap, in the short term, it is looking decently good for potential rally. So we have the idea of XRP sitting around the 200 EMA, a pump to the 50 EMA of about $190 to $2. And we have the Bitcoin magnet of around 75 to 180. So we're still in the 50-50 zone, but I am leaning towards a higher price in the coming weeks. And then depending on how that plays out, will determine the next idea. But in the short term, I am leaning towards higher prices on Bitcoin, therefore altcoin as well. ETH is showing sign, Bitcoin is showing sign, and XRP is showing sign. And of course, we have to be open to the idea of a further capitulation towards the 60K zone. All right, so if you are already positioned, just sit on your hands. If you want to start dollar cost averaging, I would say this is a great time to start dollar cost averaging because it's going to get confusing. The bottom is never easy to time. So if you're waiting for the perfect clear signals to go into the market, it's like you're shooting yourself in the foot. If you have no exposure and you want exposure, now's the time to start dollar cost averaging. If you already have a decent exposure and you want better entries, then yes, you can wait for better entries if it comes. I hope that makes sense. I think this is a great time to start dollar cost averaging if you have no exposure and you want exposure. This is not the time to be fancy to wait for perfect entry. We are more in a buyer's market than a seller market right now. Even if we bottom March or October, this is the window to start accumulating for the long term. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this video. If you found value, make sure you like the video. I post 3 videos per month, one on the 8th, one on the 17th, and one on the 26th of each month. So if you like my work, make sure you subscribe and stay tuned. You can also follow me on X at 24/7stacks for quicker updates. I am growing this account. You are in the right place at the right time. Feel free to engage with this account. And I did recently post a poll here, so if you like to participate in this poll, feel free to go ahead and do so. Which one do you think? We bottomed in March or we bottomed in October? All right, so feel free to place your vote here. Feel free to subscribe. Until next time, take care.